Hi guys, thanks so much for sending through your questions. We're here in my composing studio where I write music for films and for TV, and also for some of my jazz projects. Some of you sent through some really good questions, which I'm just reading off here, and I'm gonna try to answer as best I can. So thanks again. So diving right in, Kanye wants to know. Did you ever feel a certain connection to the piano, or did you see someone play it and thought that seems like a good idea? Actually, I my first instrument I played from the age of 5 years old was the violin, and I studied classical music for about 12 years, and then I saw a number of pianists play jazz, particularly Abdullah Ibrahim, and my mother was working at his music school in Cape Town, and she was running the administration of the school. So I got to see Abdullah in concert many times, and it was quite inspiring. And I thought I'd like to be involved in music in that way, to be able to improvise and to be able to play concerts by myself and explore music in that way and express myself. So I kind of switched from classical music on the violin and switched to jazz, and um, the rest has kind of been history, I guess. The next question from Kanye: did you ever feel like quitting music in your career? Yeah, yes. So particularly just before I switched to the piano and also to playing jazz, I was really having a difficult time playing classical music. Not I could play the music, but I just found the environment to be a little bit uh, controlled. And when I found jazz music and when I learned how to improvise, I really I felt like I could make my own music and express myself. So then I decided, of course, not to quit, and now I'm still doing those things. And this was like a good 16, 17 years ago, 18 years ago. The next question: have you ever felt limited in your musical abilities because of your own or external expectations? Yes, that's a big one. So, as a musician, you're always going to be managing that. Firstly, you have to become your own biggest critic, so you're always managing your own expectations and possible disappointments that come from within, from yourself. And then, of course, there's a bigger broader music community besides the audience. There's a bigger music community of fellow musicians, or your peers or your colleagues. There's obvious expectations when you work with really great musicians that you are on their level or exceeding their level. And then there's another element to all of this. It's the public, there's the audience, there's the expectation from the audience. If somebody pays a certain amount of money to come and see you in a concert, there's an expectation that you deliver something on a certain level. So, in fact, the longer you do this and the more experienced you become, the more professional you become, the more difficult this aspect becomes, because expectations just start to rise, and rise from the audience, from your peers, and from yourself. So yes, I'm always managing that. Often feel limited, and then when I feel limited, that's when I go and make sure that I do my practicing, make sure that I'm fit on the instrument, playing fit, and just do the work, do the homework, and so that when you get to the stage, you're ready to go. Have you ever considered doing something else instead of music? Yes, yes, especially when I was considering quitting music, but I'm not sure what that something else would be. Um, yeah, that's all I can say about that. I've never had another job besides playing music, because I started touring and making a living from music when I was still in high school. So never had to do anything else, and I feel very blessed for that. Sometimes I wonder what could have been, but I have a great career, so I'm very happy with what I'm doing. The next question from Kanye: how did you feel when you got all of these amazing opportunities, and did you have to fight for them? If so, how? Yes, I've had amazing opportunities in my life, and the important thing is when you get these opportunities to take it, and also to be ready for them, to be prepared, to make sure you've done your practicing, done your composing. Make sure that if you have a band, make sure the band is well rehearsed and ready. So if 1 month or 1 year your band or you as a soloist may have no gigs, and then suddenly the next year it's your time and you get all these gigs, you get invited to, I don't know, France or Japan or United States, and then you have to be ready, you have to be prepared. You had to take that the year before to make sure that you're ready for when opportunities come. So that's very important. So I've had amazing things happen to me. I mean, playing concerts at Carnegie Hall in New York, playing concerts in Tokyo, playing concerts in Paris, in Amsterdam, parts of India, parts of China. I mean, all over the world in 23 different countries. I played hundreds of concerts, met some amazing people, and also played with some of the best musicians in the world. And then in my film career, I've managed to write music for wonderful movies with some of the best directors in South Africa. So yeah, I've been blessed with amazing opportunities, but I also feel like I did my preparation and I was ready for it when it did come. Okay. Last few questions from Kanye. Have you ever felt embarrassed during your career? We're just gonna pause quickly. Yeah. Okay. Where was I? Okay, Kanye wants to know if you could compose music for any of your favorite films, which would it be? Definitely a Christopher Nolan film. Anything he does. He could film a plastic bag flying around in the car park and I would score that film. I love him as a director and a writer. He did the Batman series, The Dark Knight. He did Inception. He did Interstellar, and his latest film Tenet is just coming out. And I mean, I would just die to work with somebody like that. But there are more also. I mean, David Fincher as a director. Those are probably my top two. Maybe Denis Villeneuve, I would love to work with. Wes Anderson on some level, but anyway, those top three: Denis Villeneuve, David Fincher, Christopher Nolan. I mean, that's the dream right there. Last question from Kanye: in what ways does composing for film challenge your musical expertise? That's a tough one. I think any composing situation is challenging in its own way, because I've written full scores for theater pieces, full scores for TV shows, so some comedies, some cooking shows. I've written, 7 albums of jazz music for my trio. So each one presents its own challenge. The idea, I suppose, is to always kind of challenge yourself, try to write something that you haven't. Now, that's a tricky one because there's only so many notes in the world. So I guess just something that is inspiring to you and the film director and hopefully the public as well. Okay, we're moving on to Mbali's questions. Let's see. What would you say is the most important characteristic or trait to have to become a successful musician? I would say, firstly, obviously you got to have talent, all of that. That goes without saying. I would say the most important thing is a hard work ethic, because I've met some very, very successful musicians, artists, visual artists, film directors, film actors, and they are some of the not only talented but also the most hardworking people. So it's kind of, forget about the 8-hour day. It's a 14-hour day sometimes when it's necessary, and you just gotta get in there and do the work and manage, as I answered a question earlier from Kanye, manage so many people's expectations, including your own, and you just have to work really hard. Mbali wants to know who is my favorite jazz composer. Now that's a really difficult one. I have so many, from Wayne Shorter to Ornette Coleman, Cecil Taylor, Abdullah Ibrahim, Herbie Hancock, Keith Jarrett, Duke Ellington, Thelonious Monk, Bud Powell, yeah, Charlie Parker. I mean, and then more modern people like Kurt Rosenwinkel, Aaron Parks, Yaron Herman, Tigran Amassian. Some of these people I've actually toured with in especially in Japan, did some double bills with. Lionel Uweke, somebody who I did an album with, he's one of my favorite composers as well. He plays with Herbie Hancock. Has played with Herbie Hancock for the last 15 years. So yeah, there's many. Tyshon Suri, Vijay Iyer, Jason Moran. Yeah. So that's about 10, I think. Do I have a... Mbali wants to know, do I have a favorite chamber music piece? That's also a difficult one. So many. But Wayne Shorter wrote a great piece called Pegasus, written for... What's the name? A woodwind ensemble from New York, and it's absolutely amazing. You should really try and check that out. What is my favorite thing about playing the piano? I have a love-hate relationship with the instrument. I of course love the sound of it, love to be able to play the instrument, and I love to be able to play a full concert by myself. But also it's so challenging. So sometimes you hate it. But my favorite thing about it, I think it's because being able to play the piano allows you to pretty much do so much music outside of just sitting down and playing. So all my composing work in the film world, which happens pretty much at a computer, at a keyboard, a MIDI controller, and having the ability to play the piano, I think does help a lot. I know a lot of composers around the world who are not pianists, and obviously and have to sort of program their music into the computer with the keyboard, and I'm sure it takes them 5 to 10 times longer than it would for a pianist who can really sit down and play in a performative way as well. Last question from Mbali. He wants to know, what was your proudest moment? So I'm not somebody that looks back too much, because I'm always thinking of the future. But I guess in my performance life, playing a concert at Carnegie Hall, I mean, doesn't get any bigger than that or better than that. In my composing world as a film composer, probably the film I'm working on now called Indemnity. It's a really great action thriller film. I also like action films. I like the energy of it. And the projects I worked on before was mostly kind of drama, slow, sort of sad stuff, which was fine. But I really like this fast-paced, high-octane stuff. Then some of my other composing things I've done, stuff with William Kentridge. I wrote a contemporary opera with him called Waiting for the Sibyl, that premiered in Rome last year actually, and I couldn't make it because it was the birth of my second daughter coincided exactly with opening night in Rome, so I wasn't there, and we were meant to tour with that project this year, but of course that's not possible with COVID. But I think we will pick that up next year, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some other moments, but anyway, those are the ones that stick out. I think this is also from Mbali. After performing at so many places and winning awards, have you reached your goals, or do you constantly develop? Oh yes, I'm always developing new ones. As I said before, I don't look back too much. I think if you do, you stagnate and you stop growing, and that's probably my biggest fear in life, is just to stop learning, stop growing as a musician. So I have many new goals. In fact, in my studio, we're developing a whole new sort of branch to the work that we do. So I have goals involved in that. I have goals involved in my life, in my composing world, in performing world. It goes on. Okay, moving to the last few. Andiswa wants to know, is it possible to find inspiration in other genres? Yes. That's such a good question and so important. In fact, in my life, I've listened to so much jazz. I mean, I've got we still used to buy CDs. You guys are young. I'm not sure if you even know what that is, but we used to buy CDs, and I used to meet some people that are still my friends. We used to meet up at a place called the CD Warehouse at the waterfront, like Fridays, Saturdays, and even when I was still in high school, I used to get dropped there by my parents and would just listen to like 10 jazz albums for the day, and maybe I could afford one of them or whatever. So anyway, I've listened to so much jazz, but now in my life I listen to mostly other genres, so mostly classical music, contemporary classical music especially. I also listen to a lot of electronic music, so anything from Flying Lotus to Little Dragon, to Aphex Twin. There's so many others. Nine Inch Nails. I love forgetting some, but Junkie XL, and more. Hip hop a little bit. I mean, I really love Youngster CPT so much. In fact, somebody that works with him also works in my studio, so I'm so quite happy about that. But all music, and then when I'm on the weekends having a drink with my cousins or friends or whatever, whatever, be listening to anything from Mariah Carey to any other sort of pop music. And I've always kind of felt that you can learn something from any kind of music. So you kind of have to get yourself into this mindset where you only have good music and bad music, regardless of genre. So you get really bad music even in the jazz world or the classical world. There's really bad stuff, and then there's really great stuff, and the same applies to all genres. So that's a good question. Thank you. Andiswa wants to know, how can a person overcome self-doubt? I don't think you ever overcome self-doubt. Self-doubt is a healthy thing. It can cross over into unhealthy territory, of course, so you just have to watch it, and try and control it. But it's a good thing to have. It keeps you on your toes. You have to be your own worst critic, and all those cliches, and I think I touched on it a little bit earlier. But when I especially as a performing pianist, when I feel particularly doubtful about myself, I just practice until I don't feel that way anymore. So you practice your way out of that hole. Okay. And this is a very good question too. Would it affect your film score, if you dislike the film? Now that's a good one. So I'm not gonna say that that's happened to me before, because I'm sure the filmmakers will know what I'm talking about. But let's say hypothetically it has happened before. I think you just get on with the job. So the film can be terrible, but the music can be great. That's all I can say. Yeah. So would be unfortunate if the music is the best thing in the film, but damn, that's your job. So if people walk away saying, "Oh God, the music was amazing and the film was terrible," boom, that's good for you. Maybe you win some awards, maybe you get some recognition. Yeah, just do your best work. That's all you can do. Andiswa wants to know, what genre of film are the most difficult to compose for? In my experience, comedies. Funny enough, I did a comedy recently. I found it to be quite difficult to compose for. I found the more sort of serious, dark thriller like Nume Skoli or something, which I wrote for, to be easier to compose for. I don't know why. But in my experience, comedies. And I haven't written for a rom-com yet, but I'm sure that's even more difficult. I don't know. Great, Andiswa, that was a wonderful question. Sorry, the last three is from Lesedi. Lesedi wants to know, how did you first start composing? The moment I started improvising, when I started playing the piano, I started composing immediately, actually. So I was in high school, and there was a couple of musicians at my school, Dylan Tabisher, and there was some other guy that played bass, can't remember his name. But we immediately formed a trio, and we were playing our own compositions. It was terrible. We just started, 16 years old, just started playing all of us playing our instruments, so we sounded bad, but we love doing it. We used to bunk class. I think you guys are school students, so don't bunk class. But we used to bunk class to just get together and jam. We used to jam all the time. That was like our thing, just to get together and jam. And yeah, and that's how I started composing, through just playing, lots of practicing, and then you start to just try stuff. Put your hands on the instrument, put it anywhere, try different shapes. So like study your theory, but also like give yourself 15 minutes a day where you just like put your hands anywhere on the instrument and see what comes out. Try it. That's the beautiful thing, especially about the piano. You can just try stuff. And that's been my composing career in a nutshell. I still just put my hands on the piano and try stuff, and see what happens. Lesedi wants to know, do you have any tips for young musicians who have never composed before? Yeah, I answered it previously. Just try it. And also, important thing to know is not everyone is a composer. I feel like there's this artificial pressure on everybody to compose their own music. No, some of the greatest pianists and greatest players of any instrument in the world never composed any of their own music. They became specialists on Bach, or became specialists on Thelonious Monk, or so. If you're not a composer, don't beat yourself up. Find your place in the music. Maybe you're a great player, but you're not a composer. Maybe you're a great composer, but you're not a great player. That happens a lot also. So yeah, don't beat yourself up. Not everybody can be everything. I think that's an important one. Lesedi wants to know, do you think that composing is more personal than performing? Do you feel more connected to your own music? That's a tough one. When I'm performing, because I've also performed with other composers, so people that compose music and present it to us to play. And the job there is also to find your personal space in other people's music. So it's kind of off and off. I think whatever music you're playing, you got to find a personal space in it, and you got to feel connected. But I definitely do, if I have to answer your question just sort of straightforward, in a straightforward way, I would say I absolutely feel a lot more connected to my own music than I would another composer's music. Firstly, it's just more internalized. I've got hundreds of compositions that when I do sit down at the piano for a concert, I can kind of draw on at the click of the finger. So there is that connection. It's in my body, it's in my brain. Whereas when I play with composers like Carlo Mombelli or some other people that write wonderful music, it takes me a little bit longer to internalize and to make it feel personal. So yeah, bit of both. Always put yourself in any music you're playing, even jazz standards. You can find something personal inside of jazz standards, or even a piece of classical music. The best classical players like Glenn Gould or Horowitz or whatever, they always find their personal sound within playing Bach or playing Rachmaninoff or playing Chopin or anything like that. So guys, thanks. That was like some really good questions. I really appreciate it. We're gonna send this through now, and wishing you guys all the best. Any other questions you have, please send when we do have time. I'll try my best to answer them. But yeah, these were really great questions. Thank you so much.